What's the worst thing you've heard while eavesdropping to story one from like a 19-year-old guy on his phone? I got my results back. They're positive. Bro sounded petrified. Story two. When I was a teenager, I was at the mall with a group of friends. I overheard one of the guys who was 18 and 19 talking about how hot a girl was. He was pointing at a girl who was maybe 10 at the oldest. And no, she did not look like a teenager. She was very much a little girl in every way. I asked him what he was talking about and he backtracked, basically saying he meant she would be hot when she was grown. Story three. Not me, my friend who was a neighbor. Came over totally broken, crying. Seems he bought a big farm for his children and grandchildren to all have fun with Gramps. Big place with horses and four-wheelers. The whole enchilada. The place had security cameras when he bought it and got the live feed when he bought it. The kids all went there and were saying this will be great when the old pain in the ass dies. They were already choosing what they were going to split and take over when he died. Story four. Had roughly 10 girls over for a sleepover on my birthday. I went to the restroom and something told me to listen for a moment before I went back in. It was cruel. They said I was so weird that they only came over to my house because they were morbidly curious and wanted to be able to tell everyone all the details. Teacher's pet, flat as a boy, anorexic, and that it was fun to pretend to be my friend because I was so gullible. Horrible birthday. I'm in therapy. I just realized my lifelong inferiority complex and other big concerns with other women has met the clinical capacity for paranoia. It was honestly sort of a relief. Story five. I got a new job and was invited to go to a bar with my coworkers. While there, I overheard a group talking about me in less than glowing terms. That was fine. At least I knew where I stood. Story six. Before my wife and I got married, her grandpa pulled her aside and told her to break up with me because I am fat. Story seven. Heard my parents discussing a paternity test they'd taken when I was born. Never unheard that. Story eight. At work, I overheard coworkers mention the death of my coworker I've worked with for years. She died months prior and no one told or mentioned it months prior. She had all sorts of health problems and moderate cognitive decline, lots of grandchildren, and past retirement age. So there's a million reasons she left. She fell at work and died in the hospital. If I hadn't eavesdropped, I'd probably still think she's alive. Story nine. She doesn't know she's being replaced. I immediately wished I hadn't overheard it. Story 10. I used to work at a Catholic retreat center in the dining hall. We'd occasionally have large groups of priests come and stay for a weekend or so. One day I was wiping down tables and growing annoyed that two fathers were lingering for so long, just having a conversation in the middle of the room when I needed to finish up. I watched as one of them made a "come closer" gesture to the other one, and I got curious what they could possibly need to whisper about. I started wiping a table a little bit closer. I swear on everything, I heard him say. I heard he has a big fat member, one of my favorite stories from working there. Story 11. Someone said to their girlfriend that I had put a filter so strong on my picture that I looked like a dolphin. Story 12. A long time ago, I heard two young women in a bus discussing if Titanic really sank or if it was just a movie. One was very adamant that it never happened, but the whole thing was just fiction. Story 13. Mom telling her 10-ish-year-old daughter she was getting remarried and the new family had no room for her. So the daughter had to go live with her dad. Story 14. I was in the toilet at work and my boss came in and told my other boss that he thought I was a weirdo because I was talking to him about BattleBots. Story 15. A visitor asked the friend living in my home if I was retarded. Story 16. I'm hard of hearing and wear hearing aids and have worn them my entire life. When I was going through school, I had an FM system. It was essentially a microphone that the teacher wore, and it would connect to my hearing aids. I have some interesting stories when teachers forgot to turn it off. In 8th grade, I was at PE and running in the gym. My PE teacher was standing with the other teachers and totally forgot about my FM system. She started talking about a girl in my class and was going on and on about how much of a bitch the girl was. I must have made a face or something because the teacher suddenly stopped and said, "You heard that?" I nodded at her from across the gym, and she looked like a deer in headlights. I never said anything to anyone. And that PE teacher was incredibly nice to me for the rest of the year. I also had a teacher in elementary school that forgot to turn the FM system off when she went to use the bathroom. I heard everything. Girl was fighting for her life in there. Story 17. During the father-daughter dance at our wedding, when all eyes were on them, I quietly stepped up behind my mom and cousin. My mom obviously didn't know I was there when she leaned over to my cousin and whispered, "God, she's such a fucking bitch," about her new daughter-in-law. Interesting, too, that it was during the father-daughter dance because my wife's dad picked up wedding expenses with us and my father. My mom, who offered no financial help or physical help setting up the venue, but surely enjoyed the free food, drinks, had the audacity to say that. Story 18. In college, the walls were thin. I overheard my friend/next-door neighbor trying to convince his roommate to seek help, both male. The roommate said, "You can't get HIV from women." Friend was repeatedly trying to correct him, but roommate was not having it. Although I never heard why exactly they were arguing about this, the little detail I did hear, especially friend urging him to seek help beforehand, had horrifying implications for that young man. Story 19, I overheard my mother tell my father that my 80-year-old Uncle Will wasn't in the hospital for back problems, like we had previously been led to believe, but issues with Viagra. I also learned that Uncle Will had two girlfriends, one 55 years old and one almost 60. Story 20. We were having a birthday party for my brother, and not many people showed up, including most of our dysfunctional family. My aunt was trying to talk quietly with her daughter on speakerphone, dumb, as they both laughed and mocked us that no one showed up. Story 21. At a wedding, the bride's mother saying, she knows he cheated, she's just waiting until after the photos. Story 22. I'm getting an abortion because I don't know if it's Jake, Kevin, or Mike's baby. So I am eliminating the problem so I don't have to face them and let them know about each other. Heard in a restroom at a rest stop, classy girl. Story 23. I didn't overhear something, but I was told it the next day. When I was about 10, the neighbor's kids decided they didn't like me anymore and wanted to do something to me. They invited me to sleep over. And not knowing this, I said yes. The next morning, I woke up and couldn't move half of my face as there was a strange goo covering it. I got up and they were laughing, so I ran home. My mom thankfully got it off, and they later told me they planned this. They waited until I fell asleep and cut open a Stretch Armstrong doll and put the goo on my face and head. I never spoke to them again. Josh and Nicole from Concord, California, if you see this, F you, I'll carry this trauma until I die. Story 24, I didn't have to eavesdrop because she was right behind me in the airport security line, but she was on the phone with her significant other, telling them about her new labia piercing. She didn't actually say labia, she just hinted at it. She did mention that it would be important to clean it frequently so it would not get infected. Story 25. Well, as I was pacing the pews in a church corridor, I couldn't help but to hear an exchange of the following words, "What a beautiful wedding," a bridesmaid said to a waiter. The waiter replied, "Yes, but what a shame the poor groom's bride is a whore." Story 20, I'm so his mistress that I even got pregnant before his wife. Story 27, my mom was talking to my stepfather's affair partner on the phone and let it slip that she, my mom, loved my sister more than me. Story 28, I went to a work dinner with a new guy I was dating. We worked for the same company, but not in the same department or building. And he was telling the sales rep at dinner that he had to fire some guy that had been there for 1 billion years. I knew who that guy was and respected him a lot. He was beloved, and it seemed the only reason they were letting him go was to shake things up. I felt so bad and wished that I had told the guy what was coming so he could be ready. A few years later, I was with another company and able to hire that man to work for me. He was a great guy, and I felt like I owed him. Story 29. I learned that my dad was a drug addict, that he was going away to rehab for a long time. I think I was around 7 years old, and at 35, I still clearly remember hearing my mom say, "What am I supposed to tell the kids?" And then coming up with a plan to tell us he was going away for work, which looking back made no sense because he was a landscaper who owned his own business. But 7-year-old me didn't know any better. My parents didn't know that I found out about my dad on my own. My mom didn't want him telling us the truth, but he finally did without her permission when I was 13. I don't remember a lot from my childhood. A lot of things I just remember because they were told to me, But this memory won't go away. Story 30. I was in the waiting room of a surgery center because I was my uncle's right after. A woman was on the phone bawling to her mother because the school called her about her child's hygiene for the third time. I felt for her because she was so upset. Story 31. It's been like 15 years, but I was out one weekend and with my long-term partner and her coworkers. I left to use the restroom, and when I was returning, could tell their demeanor had shifted. I had a hunch to stand back and just listen. And I heard them all, my partner included, joking about how often they actively cheated on their spouses and partners who had no idea. It was a game for them. That was obviously the end of the relationship. Story 32. That a friend, well, I thought they were a friend, thought I was weird and told another person to avoid me. They were just using me as entertainment. I found out in a local supermarket toilet of all places. I walked out and her face was epic. I just washed my hands and said, well, glad I found out how you really feel. Shame you couldn't say that to my damn face. Don't talk to me or contact me ever again. You're dead to me. Still epic? She tried to backtrack so much she began to stutter. Her other friend just looked stunned. Story 33. Once, I overheard a friend tell my bestie that his uncle's favorite little treasure that he left behind on his last birthday was going to get my friend in trouble. Definitely wasn't supposed to be listening to that. But it turned out the little nothing trinket was actually so valuable that there were already people getting ready to steal it. We ended up just leaving town for a while to get away from them. Brought his cousins along and made it a whole thing. Anyways, my friend finally ended up dropping the thing off a cliff to get rid of it. Everyone was pretty happy he did it. That thing was straight cursed, I swear. Story 34. Wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but the way the house was set up, I could hear conversations from the master bedroom all the way down in my basement room. I heard all about how I reminded my stepmother that my dad had a life before her, and how much she wished I wasn't around, and how I was a blemish on their perfect little life. And then I'm surprised when getting my dad to see his grandson has been like pulling teeth. Story 35. It was at my best friend's wedding party. My mom was right behind me as a lady was in front of me. The lady asked about me and such. Somewhere along the lines, I hear my mom say, if I had given birth to my name first, then older sister's name wouldn't exist. For context, I'm the only one in my family diagnosed with ADHD, so yeah, that comment definitely rubbed me the wrong way. Story 36. My friend was talking to her secret boyfriend on the phone at a sleepover when I was 13, 14-ish. Me and another one of our friends decided to put our ears to the door when they were talking to hear more about him because she was being so evasive. It was her cousin, and they had been sleeping together. Story 37. Overheard my friend's wife tell a guy on her phone that she couldn't meet him tonight because her husband came back from his business trip a day early. When we see them together, we wonder, what if he only knew? Story 39. I heard my boss tell another boss the reasons for denying promotion to two people. One reason was ageist, and the other because of them not of the correct sexual persuasion. The third got the job due to being gay and younger, though not as qualified as the other two. Story 39. At 13, I overheard my dad, mom, and aunt talking about reuniting with my sister. I didn't have a sister or the two extra brothers I didn't know about that were all about 20 years older than me. I didn't know they existed until that moment. My little brother and I met said sister and my 3-year-old nephew 2 weeks later. Story 40. I once heard a girl complaining about having to replace her windshield because she hit a homeless man with her car. Story 41. I found my dead wife's dildo in a box. It still tastes like her. Dude on the phone in the bus station. Story 42. I wasn't even eavesdropping. The person was talking very loudly on the phone on a city bus. No, I didn't mean that you could keep it. That butt plug means something to me. I mean, it could have been somebody just messing around, but on the other hand, the way he said it was not only angry, but also somewhat hurt as well. Story 43. We'll knock him out, throw him in the trunk, then bring him back here to get rid of the body. Police never even showed up after I called them. Story 44. Sitting in a coffee shop with two very attractive young women discussing how to get a car from her sugar daddy. It was an open, wide-ranging strategy session that is both shocking, diabolical, and a reasoned, well-thought-out plan. I couldn't believe they were sitting in the middle of this store just chatting away. I don't even think they thought about the fat, old man sitting right next to them, drinking his cappuccino and scrolling on his tablet, was listening in. They left before me, and all I could think was it would make a great movie. Story 45. My mother discussing 12-year-old me with her friends. It's a good thing she's smart because she'll never look like much. Ouch. Story 46. I heard a woman tell a friend that she ran over her neighbor's dog and then put it in the neighborhood pond, and the neighbor thought the dog ran away. Story 47. My sister was diagnosed with ALS. She was always our mom's favorite, and our mom didn't hide it. Everyone knew, and it hurt my sister because she loved me and didn't understand why our mother only tolerated me. I'm a healthcare professional, but when I suggest something that could help them, my mom won't listen. Instead, she gets angry at me. So I would ask my sister to tell them, and she would listen to her. Then one day at a family gathering, I overheard my mom say that the wrong daughter got ALS. Needless to say, my sister passed away a few months ago, and I am the only one left to care for our mom and dad. I have an older brother, but he isn't able to help. Suddenly, mom is recognizing my value and treating me the way she used to treat my sister. I tolerate her and will do what I have to for them. My dad is a gem, by the way, but I don't think I will forget the hurt she has caused my family and me over the years. Story 48. Not a conversation, but my best friend kissing my crush right on the other side of the wall during a party. She later told me I didn't stand a chance anyway. Puberty sucked. Story 49. I was out to eat with a friend, and at another table was a family. Mom, came in door merchant, 8-ish, and a daughter, 5-ish. Son asks his dad, why does he hurt mommy? Dad downplays it like, no, sometimes we wrestle and it's an accident. Son presses, no, like when you're arguing. Then he says, sometimes mommy says hurtful things and the only way to make her stop is to hit her. Story 50. In college, I was going through the worst depression of my life. Overheard my roommate and her boyfriend talk about how they hoped I would kill myself.